The plaza smelled of caramelized sugar, cheap pine scent, and the damp wool of 1,000 winter coats. It was Christmas Eve, the final crescendo of commercial desperation. At the center of it all, sat on a velvet throne that was beginning to fray at the seams, was Arthur. To the hordes of sticky-faced children and exhausted parents, he was Santa Claus. A little too thin, perhaps, his eyes a little too shadowed behind the gold-rimmed spectacles. But the suit was high quality, and his ho 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 had a practiced, resonant bass. Arthur hated them. He hated the smell of their desperation, the avarice in the children's eyes, the unending noise of Jingle Bell Rock playing on a loop over the plaza speakers. But the job offered camouflage. It offered invisibility in plain sight. Who suspects the man in the red suit of anything other than perhaps having whiskey on his breath? Beneath the itchy synthetic beard, Arthur's jaw was set like granite. He wasn't here for the money. He was here scouting. He was a collector. His collection wasn't stamps or coins. It was far more exquisite. Arthur appreciated stillness. He appreciated perfection preserved before it could rot. He saw the world as a decaying carcass, and he was the taxidermist trying to save the most beautiful parts. "And what do you want for Christmas, little boy?" Arthur asked mechanically, bouncing a hefty toddler on his knee. While the child babbled about trucks, Arthur's gaze scanned the queuing crowd over the boy's shoulder. He looked past the tired mothers in puffer jackets and the distracted fathers checking their phones. Then he saw her. She was standing near the back of the line, likely waiting for a younger sibling. She was perhaps 22. She didn't possess the generic prettiness of a magazine cover. She had a vitality that seemed to vibrate the air around her. Her hair was the color of dark roasted coffee, spilling over the collar of a cream-colored trench coat. Her eyes, even at this distance, were striking, a startling, vivid green that laughed even when her mouth wasn't smiling. She was perfect, a specimen of absolute, vibrant life. She was fit for the collection. Arthur felt a familiar cold tingle start at the base of his spine. The noise of the plaza faded into a dull hum. The child on his lap became weightless, his entire being focused to a pinpoint on the girl in the cream coat. He finished his shift on autopilot. He handed out candy canes, chuckled, and posed for photos, but his mind was already mapping logistics. When she finally reached the front with a young boy, Arthur was exceptionally charming. He gave the boy an extra-large candy cane. He made eye contact with the girl, offering a benign, grandfatherly twinkle. "Merry Christmas, miss," he said, his voice like warm honey. "Let the last thing she remembers of the holiday be kindness." "Merry Christmas, Santa," she smiled. It was a dazzling, genuine smile that showcased a perfect neck as she tilted her head. Beautiful neck, Arthur thought, so slender. When the plaza finally closed, the lights dimming on the giant fake tree, Arthur was among the first out of the employee locker room. The red suit, the padding, and the beard were stuffed into a duffel bag. He emerged as a nondescript man in gray work clothes and a woolen beanie, melting into the exiting crowd. He picked up her trail easily. The cream coat was a beacon against the gray slush of the city sidewalks. He followed her for 40 minutes on the subway, standing 2 cars back, watching her reflection in the darkened glass. She got off at a stop near the edge of the city, where the dense apartment blocks gave way to older, detached houses with snow-heavy oak trees in the yards. He watched from the shadows of a bus shelter as she let herself into a charming, two-story Victorian house. Lights flicked on inside, casting warm yellow rectangles onto the snow. He saw her silhouette move past a window, unwinding her scarf. Arthur waited. Patience was the cornerstone of his craft. The temperature dropped. Snow began to fall in earnest, dusting her shoulders. He didn't feel the cold. He only felt the burning anticipation. He watched the house go to sleep. The downstairs lights went out. An upstairs bedroom light glowed for 20 minutes, then vanished. He gave it another 2 hours. It was now 3 a.m. on Christmas morning. The world was silent, save for the wind rattling the bare branches. Arthur moved. He approached the back of the house. The snow muffled his footsteps completely. He was a ghost in gray wool. The back door had a simple deadbolt, laughable to someone with his skill set. A thin pick, a tension wrench, a soft click, and he was inside. The house smelled of real pine needles, cinnamon, and something floral, her perfume. It was intoxicatingly warm compared to the bitter night outside. He removed his boots by the door, moving in socked feet across the hardwood floor kitchen. He drew his weapon from the inside pocket of his jacket. It wasn't a gun. Guns were crude. It was a boning knife, 6 inches of high-carbon steel honed to a scalpel's edge. It was a tool for precision, for separation. He ascended the stairs, skipping the 3rd step that looked like it might creak. He moved like smoke along the upstairs landing. There were 2 doors. One was slightly ajar, a guest room, empty. The other was closed. He turned the knob with agonizing slowness. It made no sound. The room was bathed in the pale blue light of the moon filtering through the curtains. She was asleep, in the center of a large 4-poster bed, her dark hair fanned out against the white pillowcase like an ink spill. She was sleeping deeply, a slight murmur escaping her lips as she dreamed. Arthur stood over her for a long moment, just breathing in her presence. This was the apex, the moment before the change. She was vibrant, warm life. In minutes, she would be cold, eternal perfection. He raised the knife. He didn't believe in dramatic speeches. This was work. This was art. He moved with sudden, terrifying speed. One hand clamped over her mouth, stifling the scream before it even fully formed in her throat. Her green eyes flew open, wide with primal terror, locking onto his face above hers. He saw recognition dawn in them. The nice Santa from the mall. The betrayal in her eyes was exquisite. The knife did its work efficiently. It was bloody, so much blood, soaking the white sheets crimson, a stark contrast that Arthur found aesthetically pleasing. It was a messy process to achieve stillness, but necessary. The thrashing stopped quickly. The light faded from the magnificent green eyes, leaving them glassy and vacant. Arthur stepped back, breathing heavily, the metallic tang of blood filling the room. He wiped the blade on the duvet. He looked at his work. She was beautiful, forever 22, forever perfect. He would need to clean the scene, transport her to his basement workshop, begin the preservation process. It would be a long night, but a rewarding one. He turned to head towards the bathroom to wash his hands. Jingle. Arthur froze. The sound came from downstairs. It wasn't the delicate jingle of a cat toy or a dropped ornament. It was a heavy, deep, resonant sound, like brass bells the size of grapefruits. Jingle, jingle. Someone else was in the house. Arthur gripped the bloody knife tighter. Had she not been living alone? Had the brother from the mall come back? No, the footsteps were too heavy. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy boots on the stairs, slow, deliberate. They didn't care about creaking steps. Arthur backed against the wall near the bedroom door, adrenaline surging, replacing his previous calm. He was the predator here. This was his kill. A shadow fell across the landing, a massive shadow. The figure that filled the room was enormous. It had to stoop to enter the room. It was dressed in red, but not the bright, cheerful Coca-Cola red of the mall suits. This was the color of dried arterial blood, a heavy velvet robe trimmed with fur that looked matted and coarse like wolf pelt. Arthur stared up. The being wore a hood, obscuring most of its face, but a beard flowed down to its chest, not white, but iron gray and streaked with soot. "Who are you?" Arthur demanded, though his voice lacked its usual steel. He brandished the 6-inch knife. It looked ridiculously small against this intruder. The figure didn't answer immediately. It stepped into the room, the floorboards groaning under its impossible weight. The air in the room grew instantly freezing, frost spiderwebbing across the windows, turning the wet blood on the bed tacky. The figure turned its head towards the bed, looking at the broken form of the girl. A sound came from beneath the hood, a deep, rumbling sigh that sounded like wind blowing through a cavern. Then the figure looked at Arthur. 2 points of burning coal-orange light glowed from within the depths of the hood. "You have been a very busy little helper, Arthur," the voice rumbled. It was tectonic, a sound felt in the bones rather than heard by the ears. It tasted of ash and ancient dust. Arthur was paralyzed. "Helper?" "The pact has stood for centuries," the entity continued, stepping closer. The smell coming off it was overwhelming: burning wood, ozone, and the copper tang of old blood. "You wear the livery of the saint. You sit on his throne. You mimic his words, and yet you do not understand the duality of the season." The entity gestured to the bed, to the broken form of the girl. A sound came from beneath the hood, a deep rumbling sigh that sounded like wind blowing through a cavern. Then the figure looked at Arthur. 2 points of burning coal-orange light glowed from within the depths of the hood. "You have made a mess, Arthur Penheligon. You have taken what was not yours to take on the one night of the year where the ledger must balance." The giant stepped forward, looming over Arthur, blocking out the moonlight. The heat from the orange eyes beat down on Arthur's face. "The saint brings toys for the good children," the entity whispered, its breath smelling of the grave. "But someone must clear away the refuse. Someone must collect the filth that accumulates. That is my duty." A realization of absolute, soul-shattering terror slammed into Arthur. He wasn't the hunter. He had never been the hunter. He was just a pest that had gotten too big for its boots. "You were on the naughty list, Arthur," the entity rumbled, opening the mouth of the squirming burlap sack. It was impossibly dark inside, a void that seemed to pull at the light in the room. "No," Arthur whispered, dropping the knife. "No,
I'm Santa. I'm—" A massive hand clamped onto Arthur's collarbone, shattering his collarbone. He screamed, a raw sound of agony that was cut short as he was lifted into the air like a rag doll. "You are nothing," the ancient creature snarled, its face finally visible, a mask of leathery frost-bitten skin and tusks protruding from the gray beard. "And I have come to collect." Arthur was stuffed head-first into the sack. The darkness inside was absolute, cold and filled with the weeping and gnashing of teeth of thousands who had come before him. The drawstring pulled tight. The entity hefted the sack over its shoulder. It looked once more at the girl on the bed, a tragic waste, before turning to the chimney in the corner of the bedroom, which was far too small for it, yet would accommodate it perfectly. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the tracks leading into the house, leaving only a silent, bloody Christmas morning waiting to be discovered.